Welcome to True Crime Cases Today. We are unveiling a shocking story. Washington, D.C. awakens on April 15, 2011, to a chaotic scene as federal officers arrive in a luxurious apartment. Intricate, a horrific double homicide has destroyed the diplomatic district of the city. Sophia, the victim's, was a bright secretary. Sophia, and an individual whose real name is Philip, a covert operative, an established member of the secret. What caused these terrible deaths was service. This is the tale of espionage and treachery, and a fatally spiraling web of lies. Outside of Sophia has always been in charge of. Dreamer was born in 1981 in a little, sun-dappled. Sophia grew in the El Paso, Texas area. Growing up surrounded by the difficulties of poverty, her father works on construction. Found it difficult to maintain consistent employment to make ends meet, the mother cleaned houses. Notwithstanding their difficulties, Sophia's parents created in her a feeling of tenacity and pride. Her father frequently advised her that the only way out was via education, a path to a better life than what they could give her. Sophia, by the time she was 15, she had was referred to as the El Paso High School. She was the first to raise an overachiever, the last person to depart, and her hand in class. After bombarding the instructor with inquiries about her weekend activities, reading and helping at nearby shelters, to kids and assisting her mom with cleaning homes, Sophia's educators thought she was destined for greatness. But below, she was a girl with a bright smile who carried the burden she bears of her family's future shoulders. After valedictorian graduation in 1999, Sophia worked 2 jobs out of her class, occupations to support oneself in the community. Prior to transferring to Austin University, she majored in public education in Texas administration. Frequently hopes to one day forming potentially beneficial policies, families in need, such as her own. When Sophia crossed the stage at the graduation her parents smiled proudly. In 2004, she was her family's first earner. Sophia packed her degree that summer, few possessions into a used vehicle, and made the decision to drive to Washington, D.C. Sophia's relocation to Washington, D.C. was both thrilling, and the city was aflutter with the promise of advancement and authority. But Sophia felt alienated in the company of the refined expert. She began modestly by accepting an entry-level administrative position at a nonprofit organization. In the upcoming years, Sophia's charisma and hard ethic won her a reputation for being able to. Her talent didn't go as planned. Unknown, by 2008, she obtained a prominent position in the United States as a secretary. The Department of Sophia, the State Department, oversaw top diplomats' schedules, planned global summits, and made sure that everything ran well. Behind the scenes, the labor was hard. However, she enjoyed it every day that it gave her nearer to her goal of climbing one day the political hierarchy. But in spite of her, Sophia's personal life was lonely despite her accomplishments. Her rigorous work schedule left little time for connections and her closest friends. Did she have any plans? Apartment. She frequently pondered whether she'd too much sacrifice for her. Philip's career was everything. Sophia wasn't born in Alexandria in 1968. Growing up, Virginia, Philip was surrounded by framework and give his father, his mom, and a former Navy officer. The careful homemaker gave him. Philip flourished because of his strict sense of duty. In this setting, performing exceptionally well in scholars and sports. By the time he had his diploma from the Virginia University Philip was being scouted as early as 1990. He joined the Secret Service for government job service in 1994, rapidly establishing himself as a valuable. Philip was a rigorous and analytical asset, and intensely devoted to his nation over he advanced through the ranks throughout the years, gaining recognition for his capacity to manage high-pressure circumstances. By the year 2010, Philip served as an embedded logistics supervisor in the State Department as a component of a secret mission to monitor developing the mission of the Foreign Intelligence Network. Philip's target was Victor, which was crucial. A Russian diplomat named Lenko is suspected of arranging clandestine activities in the United States. For over a year, Philip carefully, frequently put Leno's network together, reviewing late at night intelligence summaries and operating surveillance. Each action was planned, each and every detail examined. His life had turned into half of the balancing act is spent defending his State Department cover, another devoted to his family in the suburban. When Virginia Sophia first saw Philip delivering a briefing for the department in April 2009, his self-assurance and silent power made him stand out to her. He was fascinating. However, Philip Sophia's distance was a bright light in a calculation existence. Her laughter warmed her grin, disarming during the months in which interactions developed from courteous conversations to prolonged discussions in the workplace. Sophia was captivated to his enigmatic aura, while Philip was enthralled by her knowledge and conclusion. By October 2009, Philip's link had become stronger. Often visited her desk with inquiries that was unrelated to Sophia and employment. Discovered that she was disclosing more about herself, life compared to what she had with everyone in. She told him about El Paso for years, parents, and her aspirations to become a. Philip shared just enough of the difference about his own life in order to maintain her. Intrigued, yet consistently evaded the truth about his union and his function as the undercover agent's affair started, and it began with stolen moments in secret, silent areas of the workplace that are changing into Philip's late-night rendezvous. Leased a flat close to Capitol Hill for something was glimpsed in Sophia. Philip, the most amazing man who made her feel noticed in a manner that no one else has. Sophia was a means of escape for Philip from the oppressive demands of his dual existence. However, there were costs associated with the scandal. Philip's fixation on Sophia started to cloud his once careful judgment. Concentrate on the goal. He hesitated and began taking needless dangers, like as abandoning secret papers in his vehicle on their evenings, ignoring or working together procedure to adhere to. In the meantime, Sophia observed a little contradictions in Philip's stories. He frequently avoided discussing his private life, and she occasionally observed him looking back over his shoulder as if anticipating someone to be. Observations. By January 2010, Sophia's uncertainties as she started to fester. She discovered a locked Philip's apartment, one briefcase. However, he was taking a shower at night. At the look of it, she chose not to open it. It was the type of thing that unnerved her. Connected to diplomats or intelligence officers as a source of Sophia's suspicion was stoked, and she had a gut feeling Philip was concealing something far larger than she was capable of. Envisioned the stakes in terms of their emotional bond became more intense as Philip's mission got nearer to its climax. Lenkovo was expected to go to March's Diplomatic Gala 2010, a gathering in which Philip intended to collect important evidence to demolish a network. But Philip's increasing bond, Sophia feared that the mission's success, his bosses started to take notice. Disparities in his reports, and issued a warning. Sophia's attention, meantime, got more. She wasn't really sure she could trust Philip, but she found it impossible to let him go. Although her stomach told her otherwise, her heart informed her, told her another, and she started off gently, investigating Philip's life with the intention of discover the reality. What she discovered would break both of their. The scene was prepared for conflict from which neither could flee. The clock was running out, and Philip was entangled in a web of deceit, treachery, and peril that would quickly spin out of control in January when winter became more severe. Sophia's world started to take shape in 2010. With a rather foreboding note, Philip, after she managed to get away from the DC's loneliness, has begun to manifest. Strangely, he occasionally grew aloof, preoccupied, as if his thoughts were somewhere. He would meet them at his flat. He frequently excuses himself to answer calls. In a different room, his voice was quiet, and it was urgent during one of these times when Sophia initially became aware of the second phone was sleek and unmarked. Didn't resemble the individual. Philip always had a phone with him. As Sophia's interest increased, her affection for she was reluctant to pry because of Philip. She thought deeply that maybe his work have to take some safeguards after all. His work had always been ambiguous. Philip identified as a logistics specialist, manager, but his justifications frequently had no depth, and when Sophia inquired, he dodged a lot of questions with praise or modification of. Sophia was still unable to get rid of the sensing that he had something to conceal. Important. On the night of February 2nd, 2010, Sophia discovered a briefcase that was locked. It was hidden away in Philip's flat. In his closet, half hidden behind a stack of perfectly folded clothes, she stopped, gazing at her heart. Why would Philip be a logistics expert? The management needs something so formal. She grabbed for it while gazing, but it was hefty, and the lock was safe that evening when Philip was away on what he said was a meeting for work. In his apartment, Sophia sat by herself and stared. The swirling question at the briefcase. By February 4th, she had a lot on her mind. 2010, her suspicions were so strong that she disregarded Sophia's resolve as a quality that had consistently motivated her to succeed now. Shifted her focus to discovering the truth. She started paying closer attention to Philip, taking note of his habits and the things he carried. One night, when she saw him trip, a little sealed packet was placed in the pocket of his jacket prior to departing. After discovering the cod, relieved her discomfort deepened. Sophia made the decision to look into it. Philip's possessions during his workday. Nothing damning was discovered by her initially, until she discovered a drawer full of private. Among them was an assortment of pictures, one of which made her gasp. It was a family hitch. Philip was shown standing next to a cheerful mom and two small children, and the white picket fence in front of the photograph was hidden away as if Philip didn't desire it. Observed Sophia gazing at her hands. Suddenly, the insight was like a Philip gave her a blow to the chest. Married. The revelation made Sophia feel deceived and embarrassed. The man she had fallen in love with, the man she believed to be her acquaintance, wasn't not just evasive, but also leading two lives. Her love for him fought her throughout her life. Fury causing a whirlpool of feelings. She couldn't get away. Sophia confronted Philip that evening, waited for him to get home before setting the picture on the coffee table. That allows. It speaks for Philip, who was besieged, had no option but to confess. He acknowledged that he was a secret service representative, disclosing that his job included delicate procedures and high-stakes missions. He asserted his confidentiality was for her protection, referring to national safety as the explanation for his refusal to truth. Philip pleaded with her to hold on to his persona and the type of job he does. Secret, highlighting the dangers to both their existence if the details were revealed. Sophia heard, but her faith in him was irreversibly. Sophia's life was destroyed by February 10th, 2010. Anger was born out of sentiments of betrayal. The more she considered Philip's deceptions, the more she felt exploited, and she couldn't get the image out of her head. Of his happy relatives, she felt his pawn is only a diversion in his game. But she never experienced the life he did. Intended to be aware of her love's change to resentment, which quickly transformed into Sophia had a thirst for vengeance and started to carefully consider her next course of action. By nature, she wasn't always impulsive. The choice was determined on February 12, 2010. She bought a digital recording device from an her strategy for the electrical store was straightforward. Assemble evidence throughout the next few days. Sophia taped talks with Philip, leading him to divulge information about his career and private life. She didn't quite comprehend the extent of his activities. However, snippets of what he said mention names of foreign ambassadors under surveillance and allusions to a target-created image of a man who is enmeshed in hazardous. As of February 15, 2010, Sophia P. has gathered enough information to feel certain of her next course of action that night. She sat drawing in her little flat. A letter to a major media outlet, anonymous. In the letter, she described outlet, Philip's 2 lives, and his job as a member of the Secret Service, and she included snippets of the treachery. Recordings as evidence that the data are encrypted prior to being ready to ship them. However, Sophia paid a price for her perseverance. Misjudged the agency's reach. She didn't know Philip worked for. Philip was previously flagged by his superiors. His questionable actions and frequent absenteeism, erratic reports, and growing divert attention have attracted focus when Philip got a notification from his knowledgeable sources that someone had asked questions concerning him. He knew Sophia was behind him, and his heart fell. The Secret Service is now cognizant of. Because of her actions, Sophia was seen as her acts pose a threat to national security, put Philip's career in danger, but a continuous process that is essential to us. Interests that the organization started keeping an eye on. Her actions were intended to counteract the danger she posed for Sophia, who was uninformed. Despite the peril encircling her, she was absorbed by her desire to reveal. Philip thought it was the only method to recover her dignity in the days preceding her last. Decisions were made with careful consideration of the pressure of her decisions. She didn't realize that on her shoulders. She got closer with each step she made to a deadly altercation that would alter the trajectory of their respective lives. March 5th, forever, 11:45, 2010 p.m. The nighttime silence in Sophia's, an elegant apartment complex in Washington, D.C., was broken by the abrupt, sharp noise of a shot. Only a few seconds before neighbors remembered hearing her speak in a loud voice, they were able to identify Sophia's voice. Normally serene and collected, yet suddenly it was almost frenzied. The second male voice sounded urgent, steadier, colder, and infused with rage. The dispute had continued for a few minutes before, to the unexpected, a solitary voice pierced the quiet. The building's corridors were swiftly fired at, whispering amongst anxious tenants, in whispers, tones, a number of which are referred as a 911 call about the sounds of disruption when the police showed up at 11:55 p.m. They located the entrance, Sophia's flat a little. Sophia was feeling frightened by the scene within. Stretched out on the carpet in her living room, she had one gunshot wound on her chest. Her hand and eyes were open but motionless, extended in the direction of her broken phone as, even if she had been attempting to get there. In her last, for a brief instant, blood tugged underneath her, leaving stains on the soft beige carpet in a dark crimson. The actual apartment was eerily neat save for the indications of difficulty. Papers and a coffee table were toppled from Sophia's workstation were dispersed around. The room's floor seemed like it was frozen in time. Very different from the brutality that had. The initial assumption has just been made. Sophia's murder was evident. Philip was furious, but the night's terror was not contained. To another flat is only 2 streets away. At 12:15 a.m., a grim discovery was made. A patrolman saw a parked automobile uncomfortably on a poorly lighted curb. The engine was still going on the street. Headlights that create a spectral. Philip sagged with a light inside. Inside, the driver's. His service weapon was loosely resting on his seat. Within his grasp, as blood dripped from a wound to the officer's temple, it seemed to be a classic example of suicide, an act of remorse after offense, enthusiasm. But as investment investigators will quickly discover that the reality was much more complicated. On March 6, 2010, at daybreak, both had been taken over by the DC Metro Police. Detectives who work at crime scenes were first. Some of their story. Philip. Sophia had been murdered by Philip, a rejected lover, in a fit of jealousy before committing suicide. Life. It was a tale they had already witnessed. However, when they dug further, the fissures started demonstrating that Sophia's residence was searched for proof. Investigators discovered a collection of her laptop's encrypted emails, drafts that alluded to her intention to reveal the identity and private life of Philip. Her remarks were audacious and defamatory, indicating a lady who is adamant on finding justice. The emails stated, tapes made by the investigators discovered no evidence of them at first. Then they took notice of her. The broken phone was lying on the floor next to her. Entire body is on the screen, destroyed in spite of its forensic state. Experts were able to retrieve pieces of audio as they were assembling the recordings. Together, a terrifying story started to appear. Sophia, whom I had been holding damaging proof about Philip's efforts, and was resolved to make. Philip was heard on tape, begging with. His voice was threatening and urgent. Given the risks she posed. Courtship, but there was more. Another voice, muffled and feeble, implying that there is a third party. As the inquiry developed, the case took an unexpected turn. At 3:00 p.m., March 10, 2010, saw a senior agent from the precinct was visited by the Secret Service, essentially closing the local inquiry. The agent referenced national security and insisted on all proof, including Sophia's emails and recordings made throughout the course of the night. The case was secret, leaving the investigators irritated, and rumors of a cover-up started to surface, circulating almost. The media quickly learned about the sudden change in jurisdiction, and questions began to surface. Who was Philip? Why would the Secret Service target Philip? Step in during what seemed to be a domestic disagreement. In March 15, 2010, saw a further unraveling of the narrative. According to ballistics reports, the gunshot casing was found in Sophia's. Philip's service and the flat didn't match. Detectives were taken aback by the weapon's revelation. Had Philip not fired that shot, murdered Sophia, who was under surveillance at the time? Video from the region gave the initial. The clue revealed a black SUV that was not marked, parked close to Sophia's structure just minutes prior to the gunshot being heard. That the SUV was located at the clandestine actions of the Secret Services. This revelation caused Philip's forensic investigation of death in a new light. Of his vehicle showed discrepancies in the angle of the suicide theory. The gunshot wound indicated that it was discharged by Philip had been someone else. Carried out the evidence in a dismal image of Philip and Sophia were both kept quiet in order to safeguard a bigger hidden in the days after the individuals who made discoveries within an agency started disclosing details to an investigative reporter. On March 20, 2010, shocking essay revealed the reality that Sophia was considered by the Secret Service to be a danger to the country's security after discovering her scheme to reveal Philip. Her awareness of a continuing mission to take down an international intelligence network had transformed her into Philip's culpability after he had argued on her behalf. Safety was perceived as being jeopardized, and both were no longer reliable. Sophia was targeted, and her murder was approved. As an approved, struck, and Philip's demise was fabricated to appear to be the revelation of suicide caused shockwaves across Washington, igniting the public's interest, outrage, and demands responsibility. By April 1, 2010, the Secret Service justified what it did.